What's up, everybody? This is Chris in Softspoken. Today, March 25th, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of our first single ever as a band called Shorelines. And as part of the 10-year celebration, I thought I would take a few minutes to kind of dive into some of the stories of the band, a little bit of the history, answer a lot of the common questions that we get, and just share a little bit more about what we do with all of you. So the name of the band comes from a very, I guess, kind of personal story for me. It came from an experience in my life. Prior to starting Softspoken, I lived in Japan for a period of time. And before even going to Japan, I'd been in bands playing music really since I was like 17. So pretty much half my life I've been doing music. But for a period of time after college, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do anymore and decided I needed to kind of figure out who I was and like find myself. So I decided to quit music, sell all my stuff, and I moved to Japan and became an English teacher. So one day we had kind of like an observed lesson where the company that had hired me, the kind of the recruiter came to watch my class, came to watch me teach, and would give feedback and constructive criticism afterwards. At this point, I'd been at the job for about 2 weeks. It was a 5th grade class, I think, at a Japanese elementary school. And after the class, the recruiter told me essentially that I was too soft-spoken and reserved to be successful at that job. And at the time, I was very, very frustrated about that. I'd just been doing it for 2 weeks, had zero background in education. And I don't know, I just kind of couldn't believe that that was his approach to trying to get me to do better. And I honestly kind of thought about quitting and just moving back home because I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe this isn't for me. But instead of making any emotional decisions, I decided to just put my emotions into music instead and named the demos of whatever riffs I was writing at the time Softspoken after, the words that he had used. And I decided after kind of letting the music heal me as it does, that I'm proud to be who I am. I am a soft-spoken and reserved person, and I like being that way. And I decided at that point that I was not going to let anybody else decide who I am or how I should be. And that's kind of the very beginning of the name. And, originally it was just me writing stuff on my own, and it eventually kind of evolved into something more. So from the beginning of being just me, like my solo ideas while I was in Japan, actually while I was living in Japan, again, pre-Softspoken, I played guitar in a different band over there. I ended up picking music back up, more full-time, played in like an easycore pop punk kind of band for a minute. But my roots have always been in post-hardcore, so as I was playing in this other band, I continued to write my own stuff. And eventually, after being in Japan for a few years, I decided it was time for me to move back home. I was ready to kind of pursue music in the States to a different level. And I had a few different family things require me to come home too. But I decided to come back and basically start a band and do it the right way and have a proper plan, make it a business and do everything properly, which I had not done in previous bands. And I just kind of started outreach initially for the initial lineup of guys. So I'm the only original member left, the founder and the original member left. The other guys who were in the band for Shorelines for the first single were all people that I kind of knew through the scene in the Cincinnati area and Louisville prior to moving to Japan. So I just kind of, for the original lineup, reached out to people and was like, hey, I'm moving back, trying to start up a band. I think my initial pitch was kind of blending Under Oath and Seosin and Norma Jean was kind of my the vibe I was going for. The original guys, I want to make sure to shout them out. The guys from Shorelines in the original lineup. Our drummer Zach Payne is somebody that my first band in high school had toured with, and Zach is now a politician. He's like a state representative in Indiana, which is awesome. And the bassist Garrett Harper has been a longtime friend of mine. We grew up together, went to high school together. Garrett played in Softspoken, and he played in some other projects that I've had over the years. And then Billy Zimpelman, who was the other guitarist, who I kind of knew through the scene, just kind of through light interactions. I didn't really know him well before Softspoken, but he ended up, being a part of what we did for, I think, 7 years or so. He was part of Softspoken. He's still making music, doing some cool things. And then the original vocalist, Logan Combs, who was the only guy I didn't actually know prior to bringing everybody together, but I had found his old band and really liked his voice. So basically I just reached out to everybody, kind of sent them some of my demos, and then we got together, and the first kind of stuff that Billy and I wrote together was a song that we called Variants initially, which is what became Shorelines. And that's how the original lineup came together. And then from there, obviously people's lives change, things happen, people go in different directions, and kind of fall in and out of passions. And the lineup changed, and over time we got the lineup we have now. Sam, who is our vocalist, has been our vocalist for 9 out of the 10 years that we've been a band. So he's been carrying it strong. And then the other guys we've just known through the scene, and they've come in when we needed them, and it's been a good ride. So if I could go back to the room where Softspoken started, which was a very tiny, tiny apartment in Japan, I don't know, I would probably say this is the start of something really cool that's going to mean a lot to you and to a lot of different people, and to make sure to stay true to why you're doing this. It's probably what I would tell myself. In terms of what I was afraid of at the time, it's a really good question too. I guess at that time I was still kind of figuring out who I was. I mean, to be honest, I can't remember any direct fears, very clear fears that I had. But I know I was determined to do something that had meaning, I guess. So, I'm not really a person who's afraid of failure, because I believe that failure just leads to growth. It's the biggest teacher in life. Failing is what teaches you what to do better the next time. But if I was afraid of anything, I guess it would be that being afraid of doing nothing, I guess. The meaning behind the name. So as I mentioned, originally the story kind of started with me. And to be honest, one of the more difficult things for me in building the brand, the kind of business behind Softspoken, has been how to portray the story, I guess, because it did start specific to me, even though the message is really for everybody. It's be who you are. And I definitely have wrestled with considering, the story is mine, but, Sam is the vocalist and the voice of the story, and how to make those two things work well together is something I've definitely struggled with on the back end of how do we portray this the right way? And that's part of what this video is, to be honest. But if the meaning behind the name has changed, it's really that it's not just my story anymore, it's everybody's story. It's for everyone. And each of us, when Sam's writing the lyrics, when I'm writing guitar parts or whatever, we have our own emotions and experiences that we put into what we create. But you as a listener, when you listen to that, it could mean something entirely different to you. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the music, or just music in general. So, I feel like Softspoken is who I am, and maybe you're not Softspoken, and Sam is not Softspoken really, but he's who he is, and that's our big thing that we push in how we act as a band, how we play on stage, and how we want anybody who supports us to be, is just be who you want to be. So I think the overall meaning hasn't changed, but it's kind of evolved from being about me and me being I'm going to show you, to being hey, let's do this together. The decision to kind of revisit, re-record, remix, remaster Shorelines is really just out of paying respect to the history of the band. It's not an attempt to do anything better or any kind of approach like that. It's really just a big moment for us as a band. And for me personally, it's crazy to think that 10 years ago, this all started. I like to pay respect to where it started and the sound that it started with, while also kind of modernizing that a little bit with, kind of the tones that we have now, or how I play now, or, especially a big part is having Sam's voice on it. So I think having this version of the song is kind of a cool way to show, like, this is who we are, respecting where we came from, and looking forward to what comes next. So when I go back and listen to Shorelines, the main thing I notice is it's very energetic and like aggressive, especially like the breakdown sections are definitely aggressive. And that was definitely the vibe we were going for when we started. We had a lot of like heavier influences, and over time, I think that's still a part of our sound, kind of the dynamics in what we do. There's a lot less chill moments, if at all, in Shorelines. We kind of just came out of the gate like, this is what we can do as a band. And that's what sticks out to me the most, is just kind of the energy in the song. And I think that kind of also lends itself to what I just mentioned about, like, I'm going to show you, was kind of the mindset or the attitude I think that all of us had. We felt like we had something to prove in a way. And I like that about that song. I think it's got a really cool, I don't know, bounce to it, I guess you would say. And that's what kind of stands out to me. Yeah, I mean, I think Shorelines was a cool song for us to come out with as a band, and I'm glad to kind of give it some more spotlight now. Yeah, we have gone through a lot of eras as a band. One of the things I'm most proud of is our longevity, in the sense of not giving up when things get difficult. Not that we haven't had those conversations a couple times, but the most difficult to live through, which probably for any band, was really like the COVID years, just because so many things in life in general changed, not just in music, but we all had no idea what was happening just in the world in general, but especially with touring. We had just come out of a release cycle where we charted on Billboard. We had a great tour, and we had a whole year or two of touring planned outside of that, and had to cancel everything, and really had no idea what the future had in store for us. And it was definitely like a hiccup for us as a band, kind of getting through that and trying to figure out the landscape after that. I feel like COVID definitely disrupted things, but I think TikTok and kind of the focus on social media and like being a content creator and all of that kind of stuff really hit hard after COVID. And so, like, not only did the COVID hiccup kind of disrupt us, but we also got slapped in the face with this like new reality of what it meant to be in a band, in a way that I think kind of took a minute to accept. So that was definitely the most difficult for me personally. In terms of the band being like a hobby or not, I mean, to be entirely honest, from the very beginning, my goal was not to be doing this as a hobby. When I was in Japan and decided to move home to the States and make a band, from that moment, I was decided I was not doing this as a hobby. I wanted to make a business and make this what I do in my life, make music what I do in my life, and have the band kind of self-sustain and push itself to the next level, which, like I mentioned with COVID, there've been ups and downs and hiccups and pauses and whatever, but we're looking back on 10 years now, I feel like we're the strongest we've ever been as a band, writing the best music we've ever written. And I think the tours that we've been able to do, like going to Japan a couple of times, the tour we did with Survives of the Prophet, some of the upcoming shows we have, I think all of those moments have been reconfirmations of like, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know if there's like one specific moment from one specific fan that I can say, Joe Bob was the guy who changed my mindset. Definitely, like I've kind of mentioned, that the band kind of started with that idea of like, I'm doing this for me and I'm going to show you. And definitely evolved, especially once we kind of created the speakers, like we are Softspoken, but we are all speakers kind of concept with our fan base and all of you guys supporting us. And I think it was conversations that Sam and I had too, just about like, this doesn't just belong to us, it belongs to everybody who listens too. So I think that's kind of been a concept that's permeated what we've been doing for the past few years, at least the past 5 to 6 years of the band. But I definitely think there's no other situation than being live, like when you're playing a show and someone in the crowd is singing your songs back at you, singing the lyrics that you wrote, and it means probably something a little bit different to them than to you when you wrote it, but just seeing those moments, and you realize that like the music that we're creating for ourselves and our own mental health is also having a positive impact on those people. I think that's the moment for me where I'm like, yeah, this is the right thing to be doing, and it's more than just about me. Yeah, so we've been pretty busy as a band. We try to stay that way. We had Martyr, our last EP, released last year. We just did the deluxe version of that. Candyland sessions in between those two things. Now we have Shorelines Redux, currently available on Patreon and on Bandcamp, soon to be available on streaming platforms. And really, this 10th anniversary, Redux version is just, again, kind of paying respects to where we've been and where we came from, and to everybody who's been a part of the story, both former members and all the fans that have been supporting us, as we do get ready to move into the next cycle. And I think the 10-year idea of the band is also a huge part of what we've been working on. This year is 10 years for me, next year is 10 years for Sam, and I think the new music that we're working on will kind of span over those two anniversaries. And going back again to that idea of like the original kind of angsty emotion of like, I'm going to show you, that was behind, Shorelines in the beginning of the band. I do think that the new stuff that we have on the way is much more like, let's experience this together, and let's, hopefully we inspire you rather than show you, if that makes sense. So we do have a lot of new music on the way. I can't be too specific about it yet. But yeah, we're very excited to start rolling out some of the new songs and new content for you guys, and can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for continuing to support us. Whether you've been with us since Shorelines, and I know there's several of you out there, or if you just found us with Martyr, or if you've been picking up our free CD deal and have come into the fold through that, like, we can't thank you enough for continuing to support what we do, and we are so glad to have you be a part of this story.